Hi everyone. In this video, let's quickly talk about AWS EC2 Instant Connect Endpoint. So this is a feature, this is a service AWS provide so you can securely connect to what we call your private EC2 instance, whereby you want to SSH into it without having any public IP assigned or connecting using a Bastion host. Basically, you create an endpoint, you have your EC2 in a private subnet, you literally connect to it via that endpoint with interface endpoint to your private EC2. So what we have or what we are going to do, we have our AWS account. Okay, we have already configured our VPC. Okay, one private subnet, one public subnet, but we have an existing EC2 instance which is Linux based in a private subnet. Okay, to that end, it doesn't have public IP, so we cannot straight away SSH into it. To that end, we are going to create endpoint EC2 Instant Connect endpoint. Okay, and then that endpoint will create what we call ENI, Elastic Network Interface, in our private subnet, and that secure connection will be established to our VP, our EC2 instance. So all this will be leveraged on what we call security group. We will create security group for the instance, okay, and then again security group for the instant connect endpoint. The security group of the instance need to allow ingress from the endpoint, okay, but for the outbound rule for the endpoint, you can leave it at 00, or you can just point it to the security group of the instance. Okay, let's quickly go to the console and then we can get something done. So I have my VPC. Where is my VPC? I've already created my VPC. Okay, all we need to do is to create our endpoint. But before we create our endpoint, I have my not VPC, my EC2 instance already running. Okay, so this EC2 instance is already running. It's got its own security group called dev instance. Okay, that security group is only allowing SSH from this particular port. Okay, that's all we know. For me to connect to this instance, I'll go to connect. Okay, and then I'm gonna leverage it. None of this will work. Before SSM should work, I need to have SSM agent running on this EC2, but I don't. For the EC2 instant connect to work, it needs to be the EC2 needs to be in a public subnet, but it is not. Okay, so the option that we have that we can securely connect is the EC2 Instant Connect endpoint. But for me to do that, if I go in here, it's requiring me to create endpoint. I don't have any. Okay, to that end, I don't. So I can create one from here, or I can go to the VPC side of things. On the left hand side, find an endpoint, create an endpoint. Okay, so whilst you're creating an endpoint, it will ask you for security group. So before we go there, let's create a security group, and then we can use that security group for the endpoint, right? So let's go to back to our EC2 here. Where's my EC2? Okay, got it here, and then we can go to security group. Where's security group? Security group. Where are you? Here we go. Okay, got security group. We're gonna create security group for the endpoint. Okay, so let's call this security group as, let's say, QA hyphen endpoint, and then we say SG. So it's the QA endpoint security group. Okay, we can literally copy the same thing here and then put it in the description. We good on that, and then we select our custom VPC. Okay, right. The inbound rule, we don't need that. The reason being, the EC2 in the private subnet is the one going to initiate the connection. So we don't need any inbound rule for now, right? If you want to create an inbound rule, You can whitelist any IP address that is going to connect to, let's say your IP, and then with that you are connecting to the endpoint, and then from the endpoint to the instance. Basically, this is what I mean. You can whitelist your IP to the ingress rule of that, and then from here you are connected to that. When you do that, you can create IAM role or policy, and then also that will also allow you to point to that specific EC2 Instant Connect endpoint. But for now, we don't need that, so we will leave it the way it is. What is important is the outbound rule. Okay, you can leave it the way it is and allow everything, or you can actually zero it down and point it to the instance which is in the private subnet that you are trying to connect to. You can allow it here. Okay, but for now let's leave it. But if you want, you can pick your security group of the EC2 and then allow it as the outbound. Okay, right. Again, why the outbound? Because can you see we got the endpoint is going to go, see, it's an outbound of the endpoint. Yeah, so the security group of the outbound needs to be allowed here, right? Or you can leave it. So when we are here, let's go to rules. We leave the way it is, and then we go create. Happy days. Right, now that we created this security group, okay, we can go off and create our endpoint. So let me go to my instance here and then go to endpoint. So under VPC, under private, and latest you go to endpoint and then you create endpoint. Okay, we give it our endpoint a name. So let's say keyway endpoint. Okay, that's fine. And then we select EC2 Instant Connect Endpoint. Okay, we pick that. Scroll all the way down. Your network, you select your custom VPC. Okay, and then again for the security group, you select the security group of the endpoint we created. What was the name? I think it was QE endpoint SG. That's the one we need. We select that. The subnet. So this is the subnet of the EC2. Again, the private subnet where the EC2 is hosted. Okay. So we select our private subnet. Again, remember where the EC2 is hosted. We scroll down. Again, have a quick once over. Once you are happy, all you need to do is to create. Okay, this will take about 5 to 10 minutes for the endpoint to be available, and then we will try and connect. If there's any issue, we fix it from there. Okay, let's give it a 10 minutes. Right, so the endpoint is now available. So let's go back to our EC2, try and connect, and let's see what we're gonna get. Okay, open a new tab for the EC2 here. Uh, okay, let's go to the instance, the running instance. And then what we need to do is try and connect. So connect. And then again, we are going to use, now we have our endpoint. Let's go that. And then this is our endpoint, as you can see. Okay, now let's try and connect. All right. So we got this error. So this error, 10 out of 10, I would say will be the security group. So let's look at the instance security group and make sure there's an ingress, okay, for the endpoint, okay, EC2 Instant Connect Endpoint. Okay, so let's go back to the EC2 back here. Let's look at the security group. What's that security group? Second, oh, okay, here under security, and then we will look for that security group. Open a new tab here. That one, let's have a look. Okay, so that instance security group, for now, you can see we only have SSH, okay, for 22 on this range. Okay, what we need to add is to again add SSH, add SSH, and then again we need to allow our instant connect endpoint security group, which is the QA endpoint SG. Okay, we need to allow that. Like I said on here, what is that? Here, we need to allow an ingress. See the security group. So we need to allow this ingress coming in. We need to allow that. That's what we are doing. Okay, for the instance. Okay, so when we go back here, we need to pick our endpoint security group, and then what we need to do is to save. Yeah, once you save, it should be good. You don't need to, wait for any in a minute or second. Just go back and let's refresh it and see if we should be lucky. Okay, yeah, here you see we are in now. So this is just a short video, and I believe this will help you somewhere somehow. Okay, and keep liking my video, keep commenting. If you want me to do any specific video, I'm happy to do it. What I'm going to do now is to basically tear everything down now. Okay, I hope this helped. See you in my next video. Bye bye.